So, part 4, how to do stem cell transplantation. Well, there are multiple ways and multiple routes of stem cell transplantation. It can be performed via the implantation, by the injection, or via the minor surgery, or implantation during the major surgery. It can be a surface application of cell transplants, like for instance in burn diseases or in some chemical burn, thermal burn, or perhaps due to other mechanical injury when there is a skin defect, so surface implantation. How are these cells prepared? The cells are prepared using a proprietary patented method which is called primary tissue culture. The patented method of primary tissue culture is meant with the purpose of creation of ideal growth conditions for one cellular type of the tissue or an organ, which is that particular type of cells, which is actually necessary for treatment. That type of cells that produce the actual physiological treatment and healing effect. And in the same time, the primary tissue culture creates the unfavorable conditions for other types of the cells, sometimes even of the same organ and tissue, which are useless and which do not perform that therapeutic effect, but instead they can create the antigenic overload and trigger unwanted immune reactions. So for those cells, the conditions that are created with this patented manufacturing method unfavorable, and the most favorable conditions are for the cells that really possess the highest therapeutic effect. Safety of precursor stem cells. The search or the quest for the safety and the attempts to achieve the utmost, the highest optimal and the highest safety of this product, the FCTI, it led FCTI to select rabbits, laboratory type or breed of rabbits, as the preferred animal source or animal origin, xenogenic origin of its stem cell xenotransplant. Why? There's a number of reasons for that. First of all, this particular type of the rabbits are a natural barrier, has been known to prevent transmission of infections between species. So basically, it is impossible to contaminate or inoculate the recipient with a large number of infections, just because this particular species, this particular type of this laboratory medicinal or lab grade animal is working as a natural barrier for those infections. Secondly, the more distant the species are, the stronger is the natural barrier. And it is absolutely 100% true between the rabbits and the human. And today there have been no report of rabbit to human transmission of any viruses. Plus, this particular species do not have retrovirus at all. No retrovirus had been found in rabbits to a date, completely. Being relatively smaller size animal, easy to handle with a high reproductive range, and coming, of course, from a healthy, close colony, the fetal and newborn rabbits have been found remarkably free from any disease. It is an imperative that the SPF animals, the specific pathogen-free animals, are used. They are quite safe, and this type of the animals is used in pharmacology, in medicine, for the research and also research purposes, and also for the purposes of manufacturing and producing hundreds, if not to say thousands, of various medicinal products, actually thousands of medications, and the vaccines, and the biologicals, and so on and so forth. Being the SPF, specific pathogen-free, these are not only specific pathogen-free animals, but we're talking about the germ-free or exenic. Means they are free of all microorganisms, including those which are typically found in the gut. Exenic animals are produced by hysterectomy derivation and must be maintained in a specific isolators and are maintained in the isolation under very strict conditions and handling procedures to keep them exenic, meaning germ-free completely. What are the indications for precursor stem cell, or what are the indications for the targeted cell therapy? Well, there are many. Definitely, there are many. Basically, we can say that every degenerative disease, every age-related degenerative disorder, in a way, can benefit from this targeted cell therapy. But let's look at least on some of the indications. One of the most frequent indications is diabetes, both type 1 and type 2, and not only diabetes itself, but mostly a treatment of the outcomes, the consequences of diabetes and its effect on the targeted organs by diabetes. So it's a benefit in terms of the diabetic nephropathy, diabetic retinopathy, diabetic polyneuropathy, and so on and so forth. So especially the treatment of complications of diabetes. Yeah, it's a huge, it's a great niche for the cell therapy and the targeted cell therapy in specific. Secondly, the other hormonal deficiency disorders where hormone replacement therapy could not or did not reestablish a normal hormonal balance, including early menopause and andropause, as physiological, but also in due to some serious gynecological diseases or iatrogenic, various forms of infertility, male, female infertility, premature andropause and menopause, where conventional or other types of the treatment have failed. Another indication for use of the precursor stem cells is immune deficiency disorders, such as a chronic fatigue syndrome, cancer, and even certain autoimmune disorders. Next indication for precursor stem cells, quite a wide range of different chronic systemic degenerative disorders. For instance, CKD, chronic kidney disease, neurodegenerative disorders such as the Parkinson, Alzheimer's, degenerative disorders of cardiovascular system, of the liver, gastrointestinal tract, and other parts, other sort of systems, yeah, so the GIT, the cardiovascular, and so on and so forth. There's many of them, even the immune system, yeah, which is somewhat is non-tangible, but even the immune system as well. Respiratory system, cardiovascular system, yeah, this whole huge role of targeted cell therapy, especially with the precursor stem cells in management of these disorders. Interestingly, number 9, certain genetic and chromosomal diseases such as the Down syndrome or the various forms of global delay syndrome, mental retardation, and even due to various perinatal, postnatal disturbances or injuries or hypoxia. Next indication for use of the precursor stem cells are the burns, and it is widely used in reconstructive surgery, in aesthetic surgery, in dermatology, and of course, last but not the least, general anti-aging properties, which are widely used by anti-aging practitioners all over the world. For everything that has indication in medicine, everything has, and including the PSC, has the contraindication. So the contraindications are absolute and relative. The absolute contraindications for targeted cell therapy are the terminal stage of the disease, when the expected lifespan is extremely short, and it is quite obvious that cell therapy will simply have no time to act and sort of improve the situation. And second is the multi-organ failure. Ladies and gentlemen, it is important to remember that cell therapy is not a part of the emergency therapy, emergency medicine. So if you have somebody with a multiple organ failure, somebody in the ICU setting, the patient that requires the ICU setting, or the patient, the individual, whose expected lifespan is extremely short. So definitely there is no room for cell therapy in that case. And first, of course, it's the emergency medicine has to work there. And if and when the patient's condition improves or stabilizes and expected outcomes will look better and the outcomes will not look so grim, then perhaps can use targeted cell therapy. So absolute, once again, it's a terminal stage of the disease and severe multi-organ failure. Relative contraindications are acute infections with the sepsis, and all, when you have to treat sepsis first, acute infection, and then, if necessary, use the stem cells. Or the acute form of the flare-up of the chronic infections, plus other medical emergencies, for instance, acute trauma or, say, stroke in the first hours when you first need to resuscitate patient, and once the patient is more or less stable, then you can use cell therapy to treat the consequences of stroke. And severe allergic status, anaphylactic shock, all of that is the contraindication, but it's a relative contraindication. Yeah, once you cure that, once that say the allergic status or the anaphylactic shock is improved, cured, then after that subsequently it's okay to use targeted cell therapy.